Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 6th episode of the Wim Lex Show. We're delighted that we're at the Picnic HQ today. Picnic is a fast-growing online supermarket in the Netherlands and also Germany. And the co-founder of Picnic is here with us today, Michiel Muller. Michiel Muller is a serial entrepreneur in the Netherlands and also an investor. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Michiel.
Yeah, more than welcome.
Yeah. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Welcome. Maybe we can start a little bit because I know that the listeners from Kassenzone know a lot about Picnic already because it's a most discussed topic now in our channel, but most Wimlex listeners probably have not heard about, at least not the German Wimlex listeners or the more international ones. Maybe you can give us some background of the business model and your personal story, and then we can kick off the more interesting questions.
Okay. Now, Picnic is, of course, an online supermarket, and we have a very simple positioning for our customers. So it's all your groceries for the lowest price, free to your door. That's it. And that has generated quite some interest, and that's because we think that the offer that we have now for consumers is the first one, and that's not only for Holland, it's for many countries true. It's the first time that people can order their groceries and get them delivered at home or go to the supermarket for the same price. And that's the really interesting part about all of this, because all the other, let's say, formats have been more a premium format, like Ocado or like anybody who does grocery online with a delivery cost. Yeah? So we are the first time where it doesn't make any difference between going to the supermarket yourself or having it delivered at home. That's the first thing. But of course, it all started, we were with 4 co-founders, and Frederik Nieuwenhuis and Joris Bekkers. They came up with the idea just after they sold their business Fredhopper, which made software for e-commerce companies. And what they found out is basically that there are many e-commerce players, and there are many e-commerce markets, like electronics or fashion or books or travel. And all these markets have been, let's say, penetrated a couple of years ago and are growing to 20, 30, 40% online sales. Except groceries, it's only 1%. So you have 1% here and 30% there. And of course, everybody says, oh, that's logical. But if you think about it, it's not that logical. Because why would you go to a fashion store in the street? Because it's fun to do. You buy something for yourself. But again, they are already 30% online. But why would you go to a supermarket? Just go inside 3 to 5 times a week, do the same things, buy the same stuff, stand in line every time, bring it to your car, bring it to your fridge. I mean, it takes a lot of time. So there is no logic behind the fact that people don't do groceries that much online. And so we found out there are basically 2 things that keeps them away from doing it. First of all is the long delivery windows. You have to be at home 2-3 hours waiting for your milk. Maybe not such a nice thing to do. Secondly, there's the delivery cost. So every grocery retailer online charges delivery costs, and it ranges from 4 to 14 euro. So there's a huge difference in delivery costs, but it's something that they all do. Meaning, if you have the combination, long windows, being at home for 2-3 hours for your groceries to be delivered, and delivery cost, basically nobody's doing it, because that's why the penetration is so low. So what we said, if we can solve these 2 issues, long delivery windows and delivery cost, then we have a mass market approach. Then you always also have the teacher and the nurse, and everybody can order these groceries. So that's basically what we did. We found a way to build the last mile completely different, based on the milkman model. Well, maybe we can talk a bit about that later. A complete different delivery model, which means that it's on-the-minute precise delivery with very small delivery slots and free. And that's basically broken up the market. So now everybody can do their online groceries, and that means you have a mass market approach, hence our growth.
Yeah, obviously you haven't told the story like first time when I'm listening to you. Can you give us some rough numbers about how many households are you serving right now? Where are your logistics centers? So is it possible here in Amsterdam? We are like here not in the outskirts of Amsterdam, but it's not like super central. Is it possible to get a delivery here? And what is status quo of the company actually?
Status quo is that we did our pilot in the summer of 2015, so that's about 3 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And in the pilot, we checked, of course, a couple of things to understand what people really like. One of the most important things is that we tested our milkman model. Because what you see in grocery delivery, in last mile delivery in general, is that all these delivery schemes allow you to order, let's say, in 15 different slots per day. So you can say 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. I mean, you just pick and choose the time that suits you. Which means that if we are two our neighbors and you order at 10 o'clock in the morning and I order at 11 o'clock in the morning, then in between the two of us, he goes to the other side of town to do somebody at 10:30, which makes it very inefficient, which generates costs, and so you have to charge delivery fees. So what we did, we have the milkman model, meaning that you don't have the choice of many slots per day. You just have one slot per day. That's when Picnic arrives. So let's say Monday at 3 o'clock, Tuesday at 7 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesday at 5 o'clock, Thursday at 8 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's just a fixed slot per day. You can, of course, pick the day that suits you best or pick a couple of days that suit you best. But you don't have the choice of all these delivery slots per day. Which means that if we drive into a city or into a street and we have 3 customers that day, we can do them in one go. Whereas the traditional model, just the vans are zigzagging the city all day, very inefficient. Of course, apart from sustainability part of things, it generates a lot of cost. And so you have to charge delivery fees, which means nobody's going to do it.
And how do you calculate the most optimal route? Because I can imagine that based on the time, you will have the most people enrolling for the route.
Yeah.
How is that designed?
Well, that's maybe the following your how it was designed. So we did the pilot in 2015 summer.
In Amersfoort?
In Amersfoort. Deliberately in Amersfoort, because we don't want to start in Amsterdam, because everybody will think, oh, this is again something for the rich and famous. No, this is a product that everybody can use. Everybody can buy, everyone can afford. And that's exactly why we started in Amersfoort. And doing that also generated a lot of insights, because we could ask these people that are very close to the brand, how would you change the assortment? What do you think of this milkman round? Do you have anything else to add? What do you feel about our app? So we got a lot of consumer insight just by starting and just by doing the pilot. We launched at the end of September. And towards the end of the year, we stayed in Amersfoort. We opened Utrecht in early 2016, and then Almere, sort of before summer 2016. And then we sort of found out, okay, if it works in Amersfoort, 100,000 household city. If it works in Utrecht, for City of Holland. If it works in Almere, which is quite a new build city, well, probably it will work everywhere. So then we said, okay, let's just push the throttle and open up more cities. And that's what we did. So today we are with 25 cities, or 25 hubs, about 60 cities, because a hub can serve more cities. That's one. We have now 4 distribution centers, fulfillment centers, opening up our 5th one in Rotterdam in a couple of weeks' time. And these are all manual centers, so where we just have the order pickers doing, of course, supported by software, but doing it manually. And that will generate enough capacity to just go further and grow further as we go. And the next step will be to also build automated fulfillment centers. And that, of course, takes a bit more time to realize. But it's all a matter of how can we serve all these customers today that have apparently been adopting this new model.
And I'm a data guy. I'm very interested in how your milkman model works. So how is it designed? How do you know what the optimal route is for your electric vehicles to drive and to service the most clients?
Yeah. So what happens is you can only order via an app. It's just completely 100% app-based. And at 10 o'clock at night, you have to finish your order and pay your order for delivery the next day. Okay. Yeah. So at 10:05, we know exactly how many orders, how big are the orders, so how many crates, how many totes do we need, how many vans do we need, how many runners, delivery guys and girls. But we also know exactly how many cucumbers tomorrow, how many loaves of bread, how many beefsteak. And so then we only order with our suppliers. So there's a lot happening after 10 o'clock. And then we start also to make the delivery routes based on an own planning model that we made, based on knowing exactly how much time it takes for a delivery at a certain customer in a certain street for a certain size of order. So it's all very precise. On-the-minute precise planning means also that you have on-the-minute delivery times and you have a really reliable system for your customers. So that's all completely, we call it the fixed milkman route, but of course they change every day.
So you have the smart data scientists here.
A couple of those. Yeah,
to calculate those routes.
Yes.
And how did you come up with the milkman model? Was that like from scratch? Was that the idea in order to disrupt the current online supermarket chains?
Yeah, absolutely. That's basically the thing that Frederick and yours came up with to not only reduce the waiting times, so the long delivery windows, but also reduce the last mile costs, that you can do it for free. I mean, it's the funny thing is that if you look at the milkman as it was in the years 60s and 70s, they were sort of competed away by the supermarkets. But in fact, the milkman, also in Germany, when you talk to German customers, the milkman still for them is somebody who is very reliable. He's always on time because he's the same time every day. He's a very kind guy. You can trust him because he just writes down your groceries and at the end of the month you have to pay. So there are a lot of positive things about this. And maybe the assortment wasn't that big or maybe it was a bit expensive. But today, with new technology and another supply chain, you can build the milkman back. You can sort of rebuild the milkman, but then with a huge assortment and with lowest prices.
And just to be fair, so I'm covering your model now for half a year, more or less. There's not only like the route planning and the milkman model behind, and you've built your own cars, which are a little bit optimized for the delivery. So everything and we did a small tour in your hub here, and everything seems to be working quite nicely in terms of there's not too many manual labor involved when you're packing up your car. Everything is already prepared when it comes from the central hub to the small hub. So every box it only needs to be picked first time when it's kind of loaded in the central hub, and that second time when the runner is or the milkman, as we can say, is bringing it to the customer. So there's more smart things here which have been innovated by Picnic compared to other companies, and that drives me to the next question. So I think the big who is going to win the online food model in Germany alone? It's a 200 billion euro market per year. I don't know how big the market is in the Netherlands. Probably 50.
35.
So. 35, 50. And who's bringing it from 1% to 5% has as big a business model as a leading online fashion retailer, for example. So what do you think is the reason why are you leading right now the trend in online food delivery and all the other very, very big retail grocery chains, not in the US, in Asia, I don't really know, but very, very sure not in Europe, haven't been able to come up with a similar model. So their model seems to be less efficient when it comes to drop off. So how many stations do you have per hour per milkman? Less efficient when it comes to returns. Less efficient when it comes to central hub management. So there's so many stuff going on here, and in total, it results in maybe the breakthrough in the online food delivery market. So was it really okay, let's sit together in 2015, let's do a test market, and that's it? Is that how you came up with the model? So some more smartness?
No, of course. I mean, we did, of course, quite a lot of work before we started the pilot. But in the end, I mean, entrepreneurship means that you take a lot of risks and that you find out along the way how things evolve. And I think a lot of things were already very nice in the beginning, so we sort of hit the right target. But also along the way, we found out a couple of things that were very interesting. For instance, what is the schedule like? What is the best schedule for any person along the week? What is the best assortment? These runners, what type of person do we need for those? And from the start, we have also involved our customers, but also our people, just to see, okay, how can we make this even better every time? And you were at our hub just now, and you saw that the people that work at the hub, it's all very, they all belong together. They're just working together on making it better. And that's very nice because that means that you don't need a lot of management stuff going on with it. But it also means if you're open enough that it generates a lot of ideas from your own people. and then you can make it better. And the funny thing is, since the start, we have had conversations with our customers, and every order you can rate. And if you see the amount of customers that react on the purchase, saying, okay, this was nice, or why don't you do this, or so, there's so much information coming out of the system that we can capture and can organize ourselves upon, that it's by itself is getting a little bit better every day. And that, of course, generates also a better product.
It even seemed almost unreal in the hub tour. I visited some hubs from major German logistics brands, I would say, and I haven't seen so many happy pickers in the hub, and hopefully it works out for them. Before we come to the more detailed question in regards to your business model, though, I have one question I was given by many friends to ask you. In Germany, there had been a couple of 100 million in investment from different retail chains who had been in the grocery industry, and there's 4 big retail chains: Edeka, Rewe, Aldi, and Lidl, and none of the initiatives really worked out. So Rewe just published a report that they have been managed 100 million revenue last year, and the investment was way bigger over the last 5 to 6 years. So, and now essentially everybody is looking in your direction and saying, okay, how is it even remotely possible that there's a Dutch team disrupting the market in that way, and how can we invest? So can you tell us a little bit what your financing structure is about, and still search for a way how to bribe you to come to Kiel?
Kiel, yeah. Why not? Yeah. No, I think after we launched the first couple of cities in Holland, we went further down the road, opening more hubs, opening more cities and fulfillment centers. We also got quite many people over from the industry, either retailers or suppliers, just asking, okay, how can we help? What can we learn? How can we develop this market together? And also, of course, we had the opportunity to start in Germany. But also there, we said, no, we're going to start with a pilot. By then it was called Sprinter. A very funny name in Germany with the Mercedes, of course, but still. Because why did we do that? We wanted to have a very clear check on the basic customer proposition. So not with a brand and nice pictures and nice stories about how successful it was in Holland. No, we just wanted to test, will this work? All your groceries, lowest price, free to your door. So we did exactly the same with all these, let's say, town halls with customers, understanding how the app works, did, of course, all the translation, German products in, etc. And then we sort of found the same reactions. And it was funny because of course, we know the Dutch a bit better than the Germans. We have a German founding team, so we had a lot of German blood in as well. But the funny thing is that Germans started to react on in the app with the reviews of their orders, with hearts and exclamation marks, etc. So our German team said, well, that's quite unused and not very useful for Germans to be so positive about a product. And also we found out that the milkman model also there works quite well. Because people say, yeah, but that's perfect for me. I mean, 6 o'clock Tuesday, my wife always goes to the gym. I'm at home anyhow, so it's perfect. If it's on the minute precise for free, why not? Lowest price products. So, I mean, it is sort of the same test that we did in Amersfoort, we did in Neuss, and also in Germany. We didn't start in Berlin, we didn't start in Düsseldorf, or in München or in Hamburg. We said, no, let's start in a city where just normal families live, where there is no Deliveroo or Foodora type highbrow stuff. Normal people just have normal families and want to buy groceries online. And that's exactly what happened.
Kiel would have been such a perfect place. But again, so can you... it still would be interesting, and that's a question we are getting. So let's say there's big German investors that would say, okay, that's a model that would be probably the winning model in the next years. I would like to take it to all over Germany, to Poland, to whatever. So all markets that are shaped very similarly, where there was a milkman in the 60s and 70s, and I don't know if there's a place in Europe where there was no milkman. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Maybe that is a good indicator for your.
I mean, the milk fleet in the UK was sort of the biggest, and it's still there. Yeah. And it's also funny that all the milkmen always drove electrically.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The first car was electrical, by the way, but still. in the 1913s. But the milkmans, they also in UK, they drive electrically. So in that way, we also sort of replicated the model. Yeah. But I mean, coming back to your point where you say, okay, big incumbents, difficult for them to start the online grocery model.
Good for you.
Good for us. But it's also, I mean, you have a blank sheet of paper when you start a new business model in a new company. That is a very important point in time, because then you can make it exactly as you want. You can think about sustainability, you can think about reducing food waste, you can think about driving electrical vans instead of diesel vans. So there's a lot of things that you can do from the beginning better, different than the incumbents, where they have already invested in so many infrastructure, or where they have sort of way of doing that's difficult to get away from. And so having that point in the beginning of a very young company is very important, but you need to use it, because there are these big guys, of course, around the corner.
And how did you, because I was thinking about the name and the brand, and of course now in Holland it's a household name, but I can imagine when you're sitting there looking at your white piece of paper, there needs to be a brand on top of it. How did you come up with the name Picnic?
In the end, we came up with the name Picnic because it sort of generates a nice feeling, because it has everything to do with having fun, being outside, not going to a supermarket and spend too much time there. So it was more sort of a feeling of happiness and doing fun stuff with the time. So that was basically it. And now I think it's a very nice name because people can remember it quite well. And it generates a bit of, a happy feeling. So that's why it was Picnic. In the beginning, we had questions, of course, people saying, okay, do you only sell picnic stuff or only sell barbecue meat? But no. So.
And in last year, I read that you raised a lot of money, 100 million from different family funds in the Netherlands, family offices. Is that money meant for growing the business internationally, or was it used also for the national rollout?
Yeah, that was used for, was meant for Holland, so the Netherlands. Yeah. So it was an investment in financing the growth. I think when we started talks, we had maybe 3 or 4 hubs or something, and just a couple of cities. So along the way, we of course grew quite a lot, but that helped us to invest in growth, basically, because this is a business where when we open a distribution center in Rotterdam in a couple of weeks' time, on day one, there's one order coming out of it, and it's built for 10,000 orders. So it always takes time to ramp up. And ramping up takes also financing. It's as simple as that.
And you're a serial entrepreneur. You stepped into this business model because you saw that an industry could be disrupted. What's your role right now in Picnic?
Well, I think if you look at Picnic compared to some of the other stuff that I've been involved in, is that you have an industry where, let's say, the last 50 years, the amount of innovation was limited, or it was only used for the companies for their own efficiency. So it was more sort of supply-driven from their point of view, but it was less demand-driven. What does the customer really want? And by far, the most successful retail format probably in the world is the supermarket. Because if you go to Manila or to Hamburg or to Buenos Aires to a supermarket, they all look the same. Probably somebody found a system that worked really well. But if you look back,
I will ask my friends in Manila if this is
true. Ask your friends in Manila. It is true, or in Kiel, maybe. No, but so the funny thing is that you have a very strong industry with maybe not so much innovation on the business model side of things. And if you ask people before we started, and that's the same with the other companies that I was involved in, if you ask people, are you happy with going to the supermarkets? Most people would say, yeah, sort of okay. Because there's no real alternative. And if you generate the alternative, if you provide an alternative for people to start doing something else that is better for them, then you get this movement going. And that's exactly what we try to do, is to make, let's say, people understand what we do, what is our model, what does it mean for you, and then you generate a bit the energy with the people to change their behavior, because they have been going to the supermarket for the last 50 years. So it's really difficult for consumers to change their behavior, as we all know. And that's exactly what you need to do. Find a way to have a really strong incentive for them, so a really superior product to what they're in the market, and then you get this movement going.
And then your day-to-day work now at Picnic, is that different compared to your times?
Apart from talking to the Wimlex podcast.
Is that different more compared to Roetmobiel or Tango when you were really in your early days of entrepreneurship?
I don't know. I try to be involved a bit on the front side, so the consumer side, in terms of how do people perceive our brand, or why would people change their behavior? What can we do with the runners? So we did a complete when we started our first hub, and we needed these runners. Most of the time, these are students that do it a couple of times a week, so the sort of delivery part of it. And we immediately in the beginning, we started to ask people to work for us that really have a sort of a feeling for the customer, that they really want to do the right thing at the door, not because they get paid for it, but because they like doing it. And we found out that when we had 10 runners, the 10th guy said, well, I have a friend at the football club or at the hockey club that also likes to work for Picnic. Oh, yeah. Bring him along. And so this sort of a social group became bigger and bigger, and we found out that the type of person that we need is not a logistical person, but it's more, let's say, people that work in bars or in hotels or in restaurants. So it's more, let's say, the part that makes people happy. That's more important than the cost. And I think if you look at some of the also the e-commerce players, also in Germany, what they do is, of course, the last mile is for everybody sort of a pain. And the only thing that they do is try to make the last mile cheaper by making the operation of the people cheaper. So getting another different contract, or trying to find a way to make the person cheaper. And I think we're doing not so much the opposite in terms of cost, but the opposite in terms of where you focus on. So we rather have nice people at the door, that people stay with us and are happy, than trying to cut down costs every time for the last mile, so that the experience gets a bit poor.
Are you talking about like turnover revenue numbers in total? Where is Picnic standing?
Yeah. So this year we will end up sort of 200 million mark turnover. And then next year we'll see. But I mean, we're growing quite quickly still, even after the 3 years that we had. And this is, of course, by opening new hubs. Next week is Amsterdam, the second hub is open, and we have many cities to follow, and many cities are still very young. And if you look, for instance, at Amersfoort, which is our oldest city, today more than 50% of all households have downloaded the app, registered in the app. Download it, register, put your phone number, etc. So that's already a huge amount of people that sort of are interested in doing it. And 25% of the households is a customer. So at least they bought once. So, and those are enormous numbers. And so there's, of all the cities...
25% of households are customer. And can you... I think we discussed it with Frederick in the Kassenzone of the e-podcast, but can you elaborate a little bit on the market share you were explaining in the grocery market? Because that is like how far can it go? Like from 1% to 10%, 20%. So in Amersfoort, how much of the basket or the general grocery spending is driven?
Yeah, well, if you look at Amersfoort, which gives a sort of a leading role in terms of the size of the market and the maturity of the market, I think when we started there was also 1%. It's a bit like in Germany, it's also 1% today. Now in Amersfoort, the online market, so only groceries online I'm talking about, is now 5%. And the 4% came via us. That's simple, because we just started there, and that's where the growth is coming from. So if you look at the market at
Amersfoort started in 2015. Yeah. So it took you 3 years to grow from
zero
to 5.
Yeah. And 5% in the grocery market, that's huge. I mean, these are companies that talk about market share changes of 0.1%, and then already it's in the press. So 5% of that bigger market is huge. And how big it will become, nobody knows.
Yeah, but if this is proven, 5% after like 3 years is already very impressive. So, and it probably will lead to, like, I don't know, 10% in 2022 or so, or 2020 even. Why don't you roll out then the model not even much faster? Because like capital in such an environment where we are in, like with kind of zero interest, so you're even like a bank. So if the model is proven, you don't ask for negative interest. You can, that's true. It's true. So it sounds funny, but it's true. Why don't you take not as much money as you just can take, and then proceed it through the German market, Austrian market, Switzerland market, wherever the milkman was was around.
Yeah, but I think we sort of doing that exactly, because we started in Germany, I think, talking about it already within 12 months after we launched Holland. So it's just already quite, let's say, aggressive. And now we're in Germany. We opened up Mönchengladbach 2-3 weeks ago. We're looking at the third city. Next year, there are, of course, more cities to follow. So it goes quite quickly. And the point is that we found out that going from 1 to 2 is sort of difficult. 1 to 2 hubs, 1 to 2 distribution center, 1 to 2 countries. The third time it starts to be more easy. But still, I mean, this is a new concept. These are customers that are not, let's say, used to doing groceries online. So their first order needs to be absolutely, totally perfect. Because if the first order is bad, then probably grocery online is nothing for me. So you need to be growing very fast, but still keep the quality at a very high level.
Yeah, that's true. But if I read like the IPO prospects from HelloFresh and Farfetch, where it's even less proven, and customer satisfaction is not as nearly as high as in your cases. So they're getting they just don't care. So it's good for you that you care about the healthiness about your business. I totally appreciate that. But I think
so what's your point then? And just do 20 cities next year or 20 countries next year? I mean, doesn't that make sense?
Why? Why?
No, I mean,
why not?
Yeah, of course, we grow very quickly, but you need to make sure that when you enter a new market, that you understand what the customer says about your assortment, what the customer says about your service. So you have to sort of make it right from the word go. That's a bit thing. But
my fear would be though, even if you say, and I'm totally with you with that if you have like a blank sheet like you started, it's easier compared to the incumbents. But now incumbents are looking at how it's working. If I would be like a grocery retailing chain in Poland, I would say, okay, that seems to be the winning model. I'm just copying it. And instead of accepting that there's somebody in Poland copying like the picnic model, I would rather franchise it or go on. That's the way.
So they prepare the market a bit when we come. So that's good.
You say so. But sometimes it's easier to go in there with speed. I have like a very specific technical question here on your side. When we looked at the German models and some even like in France, they tried to use like standard software from the market to build like a grocery experience using software from SAP Hybris or Magento or whatever, and they usually failed. So you have said you've built everything in an app kind of approach. So how do you look on the technology topic? So how do you manage it? What kind of software do you use to build such an operations, which is obviously not very easy to build?
Well, to go to the very details of the software, you probably have to ask yours and Frederick. But what we did from the beginning, you should, what we did from the beginning is build our own tech team. So, of course, from the FredTop experience of Frederick and yours, we had, of course, completely the software knowledge already here at founders level. And that's a really important because when you start a company as a tech company with the DNA of a tech company, it's completely different than having a sort of a business already and then say, tomorrow we are a tech company. It's not going to work. So from scratch, we've built all the software ourselves. Means a lot of things. First of all, of course, you have the best software, the best engineers you need to find. If you find them, you have the best software. Secondly, you're not stuck with all these legacy systems. You're not buying software of somebody else who didn't make it for online groceries but made it for something else. So it gives you a lot of head start. Also, when you look at existing software, if you want to change something, you need to wait for the next release. And so it gives you a lot of speed. But having that as a starting point is also very different from what most bigger retailers, grocery retailers or any other have. And that's what you see exactly in any market in Europe. If you look at the market leader in the store world, so in the offline world, most of the time it's not the same company as the market leader in the online world, which is interesting because you would say, okay, I'm now market leader in the store world, so I have the best conditions, I have all these people on board, I'm very knowledgeable, I have business relationship, I have money, I have everything. So why not start the online version of my business? But most of the time it doesn't work like that. And there are probably many reasons for that, but you saw the same in the airline industry in the 80s and 90s in the US.
No, when it comes to digital, it's very, the explanation is from my point of view very easy. In the offline store world, it was there was like a log in like locations, and the ones who were selling better products per location had been the winners. In the online world, there's no lock in location, though the ones that are selling better are winning, and selling better is usually explained by being better in software development. So it's two very different company assumptions. And if you're like coming from a world where all the organization is about like selling better products, because you're better like in marketing your retailer brand and having a better purchase experience, and now competing with Zalando or About You now in Holland or the Bol.com, where it always was about selling better, where nobody is caring about purchasing and everybody's caring about code and data. It's two different kind of companies.
No, but see your point on aren't you afraid of many retailers outside Holland and Germany copying your model? Well,
but let's there's even like smart consultancy companies in Poland or Switzerland, and what would they do? Well, they would say, okay, dear, I don't know what the Polish grocery chain is named. I don't know. Let's say it's Edeka Poland. Yeah, don't do it within your legacy organization. Mm-hmm. Please take some money out of the organization, which is hard to do because these kind of partnership model is very, very, very hard to focus on. But let's take like 10% of your revenues out of the model and invest like in a greenfield Picnic Poland approach. That's how companies are doing it these days. So I wouldn't be afraid from the legacy models for sure. I think there's still some pets left from the Aldi team, which was very quiet in Germany. Greetings at this point to the Aldi team here. And I think Lidl had left something in its pocket, but they're growing. They are still so strong, growing in their old analog business,
which is fine.
Like 100 billion companies already. They don't care for 4% in Amersfoort, I would say. That's their perspective right now, which is your luck.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, it's also true that the online grocery market is still so young, so there's room for everybody. And we won't be the only ones that will try this. And secondly, I mean, even if it grows to 10, 20 or 30%, there's still 70% left of the traditional market. So there's still business to be done by many people.
No. I don't agree at all. No.
I'm just trying to give them some sleep.
Yeah, no, it's good like to let the others know that there's the market left. If you're looking now in the markets where like you reached the 30% already, like in fashion or consumer electronics or in like smartphone accessories, it's like 80%. So the 70% left is not very interesting because there's no margin in it. Then you have still like the very expensive, retail stores to manage, very expensive people to have in the stores. So when you've reached like 10, 20%, or all the interesting market is already went online, and that's why I'm still pushing for it. Okay, why not grow faster? Where's going to be like the point of no return in becoming like the market leader? Because we always see in all markets, not fashion not yet, but consumer electronics at least is Amazon in the most Western market. There seems to be a winner takes almost everything approach, and this must be the same in grocery because, and then maybe we can deep dive into a model here. What we're seeing in other models is that the margin is getting lesser and lesser in every assortment. So you're going to earn more money with Amazon is doing today with IT services or marketing approaches, and you're getting very interesting data from your customers. And I think you've started to offering kind of a box return service where you can pick up boxes, and that's where like a winner takes it all model really, really accelerates, because if you don't rely on the margin even anymore, then it gives you like even more capital to scale.
Yeah, but I think that's also a difference from what we do versus the others. I mean, if you look at our last mile, we built our car ourselves, we built the algorithm ourselves. It's a complete new infrastructure that we put into the market. Whereas all the incumbents, also Amazon, with Amazon Fresh, they use sort of the existing infrastructure from DHL or from Deutsche Post, right? So they're using that that infrastructure for doing grocery deliveries, which is sort of difficult, especially with frozen and chilled items and 40 items in a box. It's very difficult to do with a sort of a logistical infrastructure that was made for delivering electronics or whatever it is to people's homes. So having that infrastructure ourselves gives us opportunities of people that approach us, which is also nice when you start when you're an entrepreneur, you start a new business, that people approach you because they see something that you do that they could use, and maybe something that you haven't thought of before. So we started a couple of months ago with collecting library books at people's home, just to see if would people understand it, that we would also take their library books and bring them back to the library. And they said, yeah, this is quite nice. And now we just recently started with a return pilot where we say to people, if you buy something from Zalando or whoever it is, then you might have a return, and so you can give it to our runner and we make sure that it gets back to the supplier. And that's interesting because that, of course, is nice for the customer, saves time, saves money sometimes, but it's also nice in terms of sustainability. It takes all these trips of these logistical companies in and out of the town out of the way, because we are driving there anyway, bring it back to our hub, and then this parcel service guy picks it up and 50 parcels at the same time. So there's a lot of things that can happen based on the infrastructure that we built. So meaning that your point to why not grow faster, there's so much in this to grow faster that you can count on us.
Yeah, that's true, but of course. But you're in a lucky position, so you can select what kind of growth options you're going to pursue.
Which we do.
Be like the option within the existing household reach, or might it be like a very, very promising city like Kiel? So it's
see that Alexander is very enthusiastic about your business model.
Yeah. We have one customer in Kiel, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course. So, but when you're maybe we can deep dive a little bit on the German market. Like you've opened you've started like in Neuss and Mönchengladbach, right?
Yeah.
And now you're going into new cities. When you expand, like in a country like, and that's like the first country, new country like you're expanding in, do you look like what is the next closest city, because you have already some relations in the area of Neuss and Mönchengladbach, and maybe you can send some of the pickers to the next city? Or would you say, no, there's so much interest, so much demand from the Munich area or from Ingolstadt or from a smaller city, let's go there? Do you have an approach here?
No, I mean, I think not sure whether Kassenzone did that. Draw a little circle around Viersen.
Yeah, it was
Udo.
It was
Was
Udo.
Udo Kieslich, yeah. Well, that's sort of the way to look at it, of course, because if it's too far away from Viersen, you can't do it from Viersen.
That's your DC.
Yeah, that's our DC in Germany. So when you look at Viersen, there's many cities that you can do from there. So that's, of course, the first growing step. And when you want to enter another region, you just have to open a new fulfillment center and do it and that's exactly my point, as doing the first one is difficult, but the second one is the first one is hard, the second one is difficult, but the third one is start to be a lot easier. So for instance, the Rotterdam, the fifth one in Holland, well, we sort of did it on a Friday afternoon. Yeah? So it helps to generate a bit of experience, it helps to build also the German team, and once you get there, it can go a lot quicker than we did.
What is the hardest part in scaling? Finding like new logistics centers or finding people?
There's always something that is more challenging at one stage than the other. I mean, you have to, of course, to build the vehicles, so you have to step up capacity of the vehicle building.
Where do you build them?
Sort of that. We build them now in Holland, and then we bring them to Germany. Then we have, of course, the runners. So you need to just find the runners, train them, and get them on the road. You need to find a fulfillment center. You need to find shoppers, so people that do the order picking. So this is all a growing game. And once you have that, you can take the next step and grow further. So there's always, let's say, in any growth scenario, there's always something that is sort of the critical path. And once you solve that, you can go much quicker.
You're a food delivery company. And also, you decide the taste of those normal families that you're servicing.
Yeah.
In terms of product innovation, are you also looking like to white label certain products and deliver them under your name, or are you looking at certain trends in the taste of the people?
No, I think we have, of course, everything. We have A brand, we have private label, we have sort of the Euro shopper type of brands. And also what we did from the start is when you go into a category in the app, at the last, let's say the last point of the category, there's a little fellow saying, are you missing something? So as a customer, you can say, I miss product XYZ.
Okay.
And so if there are 5 people that ask for it, we put it in the app, and people just get a notice saying, hey, your product's in there. So we've added a lot of biological products since the beginning, a lot of local products. That's also what people like. So local beers, local cheese, local honey, local sample. So it's really the type of stuff that people really like, which means that what we have in the app is stuff that people really buy, really demand-driven. Whereas if you would go to the supermarket, you would have a lot of stuff that people never buy or once a week, but because the supplier or it's supply-driven says, okay, and then you've got the square meters anyhow. This is a completely different world. Here we have a world where people want to do groceries in 3 minutes' time. Very efficient, lowest price, my products. It's completely different from the supermarkets where you may have more time or you just walk along the aisles. But this is an efficiency tool that needs to be really good products at the best price and convenience. So it's a completely different world. But if you involve your customers in building that new way of doing business, then you have a sort of the frequency and the loyalty that we have.
And do you then also give product recommendations to your current customers?
As in?
As in, for example, Picnic is still not available in the city where I'm from.
Yeah.
So we order at Albert Heijn.
Yeah.
And Albert Heijn is giving us recommendations. You also might like this, or we have this new product, and they give you a product sample.
No, what we said in the beginning is that if we change something in the app, or if we make anything, it needs to be something that makes the life of the consumer easier, more convenient, happier, whatever it is. It needs to be something that the customers really like. For instance, if people are in our checkout, so they're working towards the checkout, of course we could spam them to death by saying, hey, today we have whatever product in promotion, or hey, you bought spaghetti, why did you buy tomato sauce? But that is sort of annoying. So what we said is that we need to go one step before that, make sure that when you see spaghetti, there's also tomato sauce next to it. So make it easier for the customer to make the best purchase, instead of saying, okay, we'd like to sell more to this person, and let's just spam them to death. Of course we'd like to sell more, but in a way that they would like it. Yeah? So if you go into the app, and if you have, let's say, purchased a couple of times, your app and my app will be completely different.
Okay, so it's a personalized app.
Of course, because you have a cat and you buy cat food, I have a dog, I buy dog food. So I will never see cat food. It's still in there somewhere, but I never see it, because I don't want to scroll 100 pages of stuff that I don't and never buy.
It's such a healthy, sustainable view on a business, because if you're like short-sighted, revenue-driven, then you of course would put the banners in there, like you bought spaghetti, please buy tomato sauce. And because you're a data guy, if you look from a data perspective, you will see like average basket will increase. But I think that's very interesting.
The value in our model is in our brand basically is not in trying to get the highest basket after 4 weeks. It is in getting the loyalty up. Yeah. And the frequency. We have now people on average buying 40 times a year. On average, yeah? So everybody together. Also the people that do it once every 4 weeks. So that's a huge number. And that means that people basically are doing it every week, except holidays. So it's every week we have a runner of Picnic at your door, meaning you get used to the runner, you get used to the way we work, you get used to the way we solve issues when there are issues, but you also get used to having one person at your door every week. Means you could do the parcels, you could do many more things that are sort of piggybacking on the infrastructure that you've built and also on the brand that you've built.
I just wanted to ask, what is your biggest learnings during the journey so far in Picnic? I'm remembering when you showed me the hub that saying that plastic bags are more sustainable than paper bags, which is usually something you rarely hear. Yeah. So can you elaborate on this a little bit?
Well, it's very simple. If you do it the way we do, namely we have bioplastic bags, we hand them to our customers and they pay a deposit for it. So when they give the bags in return to us, we give the deposit back and we use it for recycling purposes. So you have a sort of a closed loop of plastic, which is far more efficient than handing out paper bags and just throwing them in the dustbin. Simple as that.
What does biobag mean?
Bioplastic means it's made of sugarcane.
Okay.
Biodegradable.
It's not biodegradable. It's made of biomaterial.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you can reuse it to make new products, new plastic products.
Okay.
Because what we do is we collect the bags, only the bags.
Okay.
So it's a really pure stream that you can really recycle well.
Okay. And is there other like big learnings you've made so far? What stuff you thought would have been totally different when you started Picnic?
Oh, there are many things, but of course the most important insight was that people like the milkman model, so they're okay with that. I think also a learning that we have is that the way you present yourself at the door plays an enormous important role. So the runner plays an important role, because if you have an order, you order something like an electronics device, and some parcel company comes deliver it to you, it doesn't really matter what this person looks like. It just gives me the package and it's okay. But if you have fresh products in groceries, you have your fresh tomatoes and your cheese and your milk and your meat and everything is in there, you'd like to have a really nice experience. So that's something that we found out in the beginning, because people just referred so positively to the runner. Oh, it's such a nice girl, such a nice boy. Yeah, we also have 30% is girls. We saw a couple of them this morning. And it is sort of makes it more a brand that people can let's say, relate to, than a very abstract thing that just delivers the product. And that seems a sort of a technical difference, but it's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Are there important learnings so far? And maybe important learnings regarding like building your own cars. So it seems to be like impossible building your own cars, even especially from like a startup perspective. And now I don't know how many cars are out there now. 700 cars. It's probably more than Aston Martins are driving around here.
No, it's by far the biggest online grocery fleet in Europe. That's for sure. Electric.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So was that easy to come up with like your own car?
No, but it played a very crucial role, because looking at the window, the delivery window problem, and the distribution cost problem, the last mile cost, the vehicle plays an enormous important role. Because if you have a standard vehicle, let's say, first of all, it's diesel, because there are not so many standard electrical vans. Then it's quite big. It's a back loader, but also a back unloader, so you have to go inside, so you need a gangway of 1 meter wide. So the vehicle is bigger. You can't park it in front of people's homes, so you have to park it 100 meters down the road on the corner of the street, so it takes more time to go back and forth. So the vehicles plays a very important role in this whole last mile cost. So if you want to change that, you need to develop your own vehicle. That's exactly what we did.
And you have like running like your own factory here, building those vehicles, or do you have like a joint venture with like a professional vehicle builder? It still seems to be like having a vehicle which you're like driving on the street like across the normal Hondas and all that stuff. So that seems to be like ridiculous.
No, of course we didn't build our own battery. That's something that we of course we buy the components. And we sort of make sure that somebody builds the electrical parts, let's say the wheels and the battery. But the rest is all custom made by us for us. Yeah.
And
so you can't buy it on the market.
What is the reach for such a vehicle when you start a
vehicle? It's 100 kilometers per day on a full battery, let's say.
Without recharging it?
Without recharging it.
That's even further than the DHL Sprinter.
Is that
the 80?
The street scooter?
The street scooter, it's 80 or something.
Yeah.
I haven't seen like one heavy street scooter driver. No. Also, there's no heating, for example, and not really cooling. So they put their own ventilators inside in the morning to heat up the cabin. Okay. And then they have been used to Volkswagen or to Mercedes Sprinters. That's used even for like long distance.
Stuff. This is of course a different vehicle. This is a vehicle that can only drive 50 km an hour. So, and it's only for inner city, because you can't go on the motorway with these vehicles, of course. So you have to. Our whole model is based upon a local hub close to where people live, and then we have the electrical vans doing these small milkman rounds.
Do you have then superchargers at the different hubs to charge them?
It's just a very simple battery that you can just put in the socket, and overnight it charges.
Everything seems so simple here, and people are so nice. So there must be a trick.
There are no superchargers. No. But also the vehicle. I mean, if you look at the first version of the vehicle and now, it has already changed. We put in a different suspension, we put in cameras, we put in one of the first things that we found out after a couple of months, talking about learnings, we had a vehicle with 3 layers of totes. Because we thought, okay, we're going to make a milkman round of 2 hours, so how many orders can you deliver in 2 hours? Times the average number of totes, so many totes we can deliver in 2 hours, so the vehicle needs to be that high. But we found out already after a couple of months that the density of our customers was so high that we did a couple of in one street, and then we went the next street and did 2, and then another street we did 1, and then so we had sort of in 2 hours we were ready by far before we thought. So we had more time and more orders we could put inside, so we made it bigger. So we added a 4th layer, meaning that every trip has 30% more capacity. Because instead of going with 3 totes, you can go with 4 layers of totes.
But what is the maximum? You can't increase the size any further, right? So then you wouldn't have like the advantage of parking in front of customers' houses.
Yeah, that's so. So if you make the vehicle a lot bigger, it means that you can't park in front. This is important. But also, if you make the vehicle a lot bigger, the trips get a lot longer. And that's exactly what you see also in traditional distribution models, is that people, they go into their van, the people that work for these companies, they go into the van at 8 o'clock in the morning, let's say in Viersen, and they drive to Krefeld. It takes them 40 minutes, not sure. And they drive to Krefeld, and then they take sort of the whole day to do 18 deliveries, because they are zigzagging the city all day, just to do these 18 deliveries. Then they drive back, and they're ready. Yeah. We have these small milkman routes, meaning that if in the traditional system you have a traffic jam at the start of your day of half an hour, which can happen anytime, at least in Holland. If you have a traffic jam and you lose half an hour, you can never make up during the day. So you already know at the first morning that your last 10 customers will not be very happy, because they had already a 2-hour time slot, and then you're already coming an hour late or half an hour late. And that's also the benefit of the small rounds, that you have small efficient rounds, you come back and you do the next round. So you have a problem in your first round, it's not affecting all these other customers.
Now you got me, because I usually get a text message, sorry, we're running a little bit late because of this delay.
Yeah.
Of a driver going zigzagging around.
No, we also did in the beginning. We stole a bit from Uber, the interface where you can see the vehicle driving. Yeah. So we made exactly that sort of, and we thought it was sort of a gimmick, it's just nice for customers, but they really love it, because now it's really on the minute, so they can see Marco is driving to my door.
I think there was a discussion on a food panel a couple of weeks ago. I think it was like a guy from Switzerland telling they deactivated the option because people started to call the driver or the central, because I see the vehicle is so close. It should come.
That's for Uber.
No, it wasn't Uber. No, it was like I think it was like a Switzerland food delivery.
We always like when people give us a call.
Yeah, I see the same way.
Do you want feedback or don't you want feedback?
Yeah. So we are running out a little bit of time because it shouldn't be longer than a European flight, the podcast. Because
is that the idea?
That's what you're usually saying. But I think there's going to be like maybe a second or third episode about picnic in the future. There's so much stuff to come. Maybe there's some Polish grocery chain starting now. The picnic greenfield approach.
Exactly. Give me a call
listening
when you do.
to Kassenzone
Of course.
And Wimlex starting with it.
We should think about affiliate model.
Yes.
But I don't. Do you have like still one question left, or is it okay?
Well, we talked a lot about picnic and about the model that you're building. What I was also interested in, you're also an investor. You've invested in the past in companies like Facilista here in the Netherlands. And you actually received this business idea also from the Fred Hopper founders.
Absolutely.
How do you decide on a business idea? What are the factors that you look at to judge a new business idea on?
I think a couple of things. First of all, size of the market is interesting. You could also be in a very small market and be very successful. Don't misunderstand me. But the size of the market is really interesting. Then the level of innovation that you can bring to the table. How good is your idea? How good is your business model? And thirdly, is this a market where people have been doing the same years after years and not many changes have happened? And so if you combine those three things, then you have a sort of an explosive mix. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, since the start, we got so many people signing up and saying, hey, now I can also do groceries online. So the demand was there, but you just have to unlock it by building a new business model.
Yeah.
Great.
So all three criteria, if you put like an amplifier, it's like on the maximum amplifier, market size, like demand, slowness of the incumbents. So it
ticks all the boxes.
That makes it a little bit hard, like for another business ideas like coming through.
And a strong founder team as well, I think.
Yeah,
absolutely. And of course, I mean, everything is adding up when you have also, of course, and as we're now here with 170 people, about half of is developers. So that's, of course, a difficult part for us to keep attracting the right people and keep attracting the best people. But that's the only thing you can do, because you need to have the best people on board.
Great.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for your time. So
thank you very much.
I'm pretty sure Udo and all the other guys from the food industry will send us some additional questions we can then process in a second episode. Thanks a lot. It was super interesting.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.